So another day in paradise, and today I thought I'd go down to the beach. See you soon. So everybody, different kind of sand today, but the sand that we're more used to. This is the kind of bit of beach that not everybody really wants to put a towel down and get a suntan. Especially if you've got this kind of large lip in front of you. It's so intimidating that a lot of times people will have lost before they even begin. The main trick here is basically the interaction between the sole of the golf club and the sand. And a lot of people are making just simply the mistake of coming into the sand far too steeply. And that means that the front edge of the golf club basically digs into the sand, and then you're getting far too much sand between the golf ball and the face. If, on the other hand, you could kind of get the club coming in like this, so almost as if it's going to land on its back, then you've got this large flange, and the flange will basically stop the club from digging into the sand, irrespective of how hard you're hitting against the sand. And that's really what you want to have a feeling of doing, is really kind of hitting down and almost making it bounce, which is one of the reasons that they actually call this flange the bounce of the club. And when they're grinding it, they will actually try and increase the flange a little bit, especially on a sand wedge. So when I'm doing that, because I'm going to kind of open the club up as a twist it to the right as a right-handed golfer, obviously the golf ball will then tend to disappear off to the right. And this is the only reason really that we're going to aim a little bit to the left. So I want to get my feet and shoulders kind of aimed up to the left. I also don't want to get kind of too narrow in the stance. I like to get a nice wide stance, and I like to get the feeling of it really being more out of kind of my upper body. I'm not really wanting too much kind of hip and leg action here, although obviously the hips and legs will go with the swing. It's a bit more like kind of the upper body's pulling them to the right and pulling them to the left. The main trick though is all about kind of the wrist action. Now theoretically, if you kept stiff wrists, you'd have a nice flat angle of attack, and therefore you wouldn't dig into the sand as much. But obviously you're not going to get the club head speed that you require to get the golf ball up. So what I'm doing here is really kind of letting my wrists kind of release, feeling a little bit earlier. Now this will actually be helped because I'm not being quite as aggressive in my hip turn. If I turn my hips very aggressively, turn my shoulders very aggressively, then really the release happens very late in the swing, in the downswing I mean. When I've got the hips almost resisting my shoulder rotation, then they're slowing the shoulder rotation down a little earlier, and that will basically cause the release. And then I really want the kind of picture of the club releasing and going kind of under the golf ball and the back of the club bouncing off the sand. Let's see if I can do one for you. So you can see really there's not an awful lot to it. I've got this feeling of the club coming down, coming in with the back of the club kind of sliding down in a relative shallow way, and then coming up and over my shoulder. And I'm not trying to kind of hit down at it. I'm not getting too excited in my hip rotation, because I really want this feeling of almost an early release to get the club bottomed out, to get the wrists bottomed out, get the club face pointing upwards, and get the back of the club, the flange of the club, in the sand. And I've really got this feeling of the thing kind of bouncing off the deck there. So as I come through, I let it really kind of speed through under the golf ball, and that gets the golf ball up. So it's all really about the interaction between the back of the club, the sole of the club, and the sand, not getting too style, I'm speaking German to you now, getting too steep on it, because if you get too steep on it, you're going to start digging into it, and most certainly not trying to lift the ball out of the sand. You're trying to get the club head to release underneath the ball, bounce off the bottom of the bunker, and it will come up by itself along with the golf ball. Hope this has helped. If it has, then please hit the like button. If you've got any more questions about a bunker and the best way to kind of play out of a bunker, leave me a comment below. Otherwise, subscribe to the channel. That helps me to get back a little bit more often. I'll see you all next time.